will take off the development of that tissue. So these are the molar stages of development. You need to remember these stages and they're really important. So first stage is stage 0. It does not start with 1, it starts with stage 0, which is absence of crypt. There is no crypt, there is just bone, there is no lining. Okay. Next is presence of crypt. Okay. Then there is initial calcification, like you see some calcification. So then is initial calcification. So 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 is 1/3 of the crown is complete. 1/3 crown completion. 4, 2/3 crown. 5, crown almost complete. 6, crown complete. 7, 1/3 root completion. 8, 2/3 root completion. Root complete. Okay, so these are the stages you need to remember. You should know how to see this in a radiograph as well. Okay, so why is it of importance here in orthodontics is there are two basic questions that are asked is on this stage and on this stage. So, you can talk.
फिर इसमें लिखो कॉपी नहीं इसकी ये वाली तो थी ये नहीं थी स्टार्ट हो गई बीच में यानी किसी लिए भी कॉपी
guys your mic is on. Please do this to everyone. Please mute yourself. It's very request from my side. So questions are asked on these two stages. First is crown complete. What happens when crown is complete?
मोलार स्टेज
इंटू माइक ऑफ कर लो.
Yeah, thank you, whoever intervened. So first is crown complete. Crown complete means the crown is almost complete here. Crown is complete and the root formation started. So this is the stage when the eruption starts. Eruption of tooth starts within the bone. Okay, and 8 is the stage when, okay, I'll just show you this example. Now this is a real life X-ray of a patient. So this is how a crypt looks like. Can you see? This is how a crypt looks like. Now here the calcification is, here the crown is already started. It seems that it is 1/3 of the crown is complete already. So this is how you need to see what happens. So I'll ask, like you have to answer me in the chat box. Do you think for this tooth, has the eruption started? Has the eruption started for this tooth? Anyone? You need to answer me in the chat box. No, exactly, because the crown is not yet complete. Yes, exactly. This is how you need to see. Eruption has not started for this, nothing. But if you see this tooth, now it is not really very clear. So what happens is this tooth is like this, okay? This is the other thing. Now here is the enamel. And if you change the brightness, you can see the enamel also. For this tooth, the eruption has started because the crown is complete and the root formation has just started. Okay, so this is the clinical significance of this molar stages. So you would know that for which tooth the eruption is started. Has the eruption started for this tooth? Anyone? Has the eruption started for this tooth? Yes, because the crown is complete, and if you can see very clearly here, you can see the enamel ending. So it means that the crown is already completed and the root formation is started. Now the other question comes on this phenomenon. What is this? This is a tooth tip. What is this phenomenon called? When the tip of the tooth is visible in the oral cavity, it is called emergence. Okay, so emergence happens when 2/3 of the root is present. When 2/3 of the root formation has taken place, then emergence happens in the oral cavity. This is how emergence looks like. So emergence takes place on knowledge stage 8. So these are the two things that you need to remember from knowledge stages of tooth development. Now we take the characteristics of gum pads. Gum pads usually, like this is a diagrammatic representation taken from Gurpreet Singh Sir's book. So this is how it looks like. There are certain groups. So first is the transverse group. Now it separates all the future teeth, all the future buds. It separates. So there would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all the 10 teeth are separated by the transverse group. Next is the lateral sulcus. Lateral sulcus lies between the canine and first molar. There are no premolars in deciduous dentition. So it lies between the canine and first molar. A lot of questions have been asked. Next is the dental group. It is in the region of first molar and it crosses the arches. Next is the gingival group. It separates this area from this area. Okay, so it separates the gums from the palate and from the lingual aspect. Okay, dental group. You need to remember these groups because these groups are asked in the exam. Now, Dr. Mandi has asked me significance of 8 is emergence of the tooth takes place in Nola stage 8. So these groups are clear, I guess. Next is how does the gum pads of okay. So you're asking me what is the dental group and what is the gingival group. Gingival group separates the gum pads from the palate and the lingual mucosa. Okay, so here is the gingival group. This is the gingival group. And this is the gingival groove. Okay. Now, dental groove does not run from buccal aspect, it runs from the lingual aspect. So, if this is the gingival groove, from the lingual aspect or the palatal aspect is the dental groove. It essentially separates first molar and second molar only, but because it runs from the gingival aspect, we have a different name for this. This is the dental groove. Okay, so gingival groove separates the gum pads from the palate and from the lingual mucosa, while the gingival groove essentially separates first and second molar only, but it runs from the lingual aspect. If you see, the lateral sulcus is running from the buccal aspect. Transverse grooves also run from the buccal aspect, but dental groove runs from the gingival aspect, but from the palatal side. Okay. Next, we are going to see how do these occlude. So if you see, then there is an open bite. For a newborn, there is an open bite when there are no teeth present. There is an open bite for the child to help in suckling. So it helps in suckling. This is why there is an open bite. The other thing is that there is a contact at the future first molar region. When the child occludes, when the child closes the mouth, then there is a contact at the future first molar region. Okay, so these are two main characteristics of a predentate occlusion. Is first, there's no occlusion as such. The predentate gums is first, there is an open bite in the anterior portion which helps the child in suckling, and there is contact with the future first molar region. Now we're going to see a few aspects of a deciduous dentition. So if you see, then there is some space, less space in this patient, but yes, there is space. Maybe you can see this also. There is space. So first characteristic of a deciduous dentition is there are spacing. There is a generalized spacing. Maybe we can see the next slide. So there is a generalized spacing. First is generalized spacing. Now this generalized spacing is also called developmental or physiological spacing. Okay, first is generalized spacing. The second characteristic is primate spaces. Okay, primate or anthropoid spaces. Primate, anthropoid, or simian spaces. So it is distal to the lateral incisor in the maxillary arch and mesial to canine in the mandibular arch. So there are primate spaces in spaced ambition. So what is the magnitude of the generalized spacing? It is usually 3 to 4 mm. 4 mm in the maxillary arch, 3 mm in the canine spaces is present. It is usually 0 to 4 mm. Sometimes it is more in the maxillary arch. Most commonly it is more in the maxillary arch, but there is a range of 0 to 4 mm. Then third is, there is a shallow overjet. 1 to 2 mm of overjet is there. Like you can see, these are. The next characteristic is deep bite. Can you see? There is deep bite. So there is a deep bite. Next is, there is a vertical inclination of incisors. Incisors are straight on the bone. Vertical inclination of incisors. Okay. And the last is, there is a overjet. Flat speed. Okay, so the third point is 1 to 2 mm overjet. So there is less overjet. Primate spaces, anthropoids, we'll come next. We'll come next. So if you see these two dentition, both the dentition are of deciduous dentition. Now here you are able to see a deep bite. Can you see there is deep bite? Okay. Now what is different in this dentition? This is also deciduous dentition. What is different? What is different in this dentition? Anyone, what is different in this dentition? Spacing is more. Yes, there is spacing is more. This is a good dentition. That is bad dentition. There's no deep bite. Exactly. Thank you, Dr. Nivi. Yeah, no deep bite. So this is an edge-to-edge bite. This is an edge-to-edge bite. So what is wrong with this patient? There's nothing wrong. Deep bite is absent because what happens now? This is at the age. This patient must be of 6 years of age. His first molars might be just about to come. So what happens is there is a vertical. Can you see wear off also? There is wear off, vertical wearing off, and there is no deep bite. There is no bite. Like there is no overbite. So this also happens, and this is also characteristic of a deciduous dentition. So in later stages of deciduous dentition, deep bite may turn into the edge-to-edge bite, or there will be no overjet in this case. Okay, so don't get startled if you see such a case. This is also characteristic of deciduous dentition. So when the molar is just about to come, this is also seen in deciduous dentition. Okay, now this is what is primate spaces. Somebody was asking me the position of primate spaces, primate, anthropoid, or simian spaces. What is the location? It is distal to lateral incisor and maxillary arch, and it is distal to canine in mandibular arch. Okay, sometimes it is mesial to canine, distal to lateral incisor, or mesial to canine in maxillary arch and distal to canine in the mandibular arch. Okay, mesial to canine in maxillary arch, distal to canine in mandibular arch. Next, we are going to see the molar relationship. How is the molar relationship? This is also characteristics of Bomey's classification is followed. So if you see a molar and you can hop on this molar, you can actually stand on this molar from a mesial aspect. It is called a mesial step relationship. When it is flat, then it is a flush terminal plane. Flush terminal plane. And when you hop on the molar, if you are a person and you can hop on the molar from the distal aspect, then this is called distal step relationship. Now, what else you need to remember in this? So you need to remember what is the percentage of this. So mesial step occurs in 49% of individuals. Flush terminal plane occurs in 37% of the individuals, and distal step occurs in 14% of the individuals, according to a study given in McDonald's. Okay, this is percentage. This percentage is according to a study in McDonald's. That's it. It doesn't need to be true for the patients that you see. It doesn't need to be true for the Indian setup. We need different studies for the Indian study. This is where the role of research comes in. But for now, you need to understand, you need to remember these values because this is what will be asked in exams. Okay, you understand this Bormes classification so that we can move on to the next step. You understand this Bormes classification? I'll show you the real implication of this. Now, Dr. Nikhil has asked me what is the purpose of primate spaces. We are going to discuss in the future slides. Just hold on. Now, these are the real patients' photographs from my clinic. Okay, now I'm just going to ask you, what is this? So this is the molar, lower molar. This is the upper molar. What is the Bormes classification in this? A. What is the Bormes classification? Everyone. This is a distal step. No. Okay. What is mesial and distal? Okay, I'll maybe you don't know that. What is mesial and distal? So this is like how you are doing this A, B, C, D, E. Okay. So this is the mesial and this is the distal aspect. So if you are here, then you are on the mesial of A, mesial of A. If you are here, you are on the distal side of B and mesial side of C. Okay. Now this is the mesial aspect and this is the distal aspect for this patient, right? So you are able to hop on this from the mesial side. So this is a mesial step relationship. Now what is this relationship? Next step, next relationship. This is a flush terminal plane. Now, what is this relationship? Here is the molar and here is the molar. What is this relationship? Last. This is a distal step relationship. So you understand it fairly, right? Great. I'm so happy that you understand mesial step and distal step because I could not understand it. Like, it was very hard for me to understand this. I understood it quite late in my life. So you understand it. Now we will just see the clinical implication of this as well in this slide itself. Okay. So do you see this is a mesial step relationship? So what kind of occlusion is this? Can you see there is a crossbite in the anterior region? Okay. So mesial step has a tendency to go towards class 3. You understand this concept now? Mesial step has a tendency to go towards class 3 and distal step has a tendency to go towards class 2. So you understand these two things? This is a very important concept. Okay. So mesial step relationships, because the mandible is forward, it has a tendency to go into class 3 and this patient is actually in class 3. Right? And the distal step relationships, the patient has a tendency to go into class 2. One more thing from a practical aspect, do you see anthropoid spaces here? Yes, but there is no much space in the mandibular arch. So sometimes there is an aberrant growth and these spaces are not present. So whatever we saw, Dr. Reniko has asked most favorable plane is mesial or flush terminal. We will see it. Dr. Reniko, we are going to see it in so sometimes there are spaces, sometimes there is aberrant in the growth. Can you see there is a anthropoid spaces here, but there is no anthropoid space here. You don't see it, right? For this patient, because of caries and because of all these things, the normal pattern is disturbed. This is why we need to keep check of all these developmental anomalies and theories in the patients so that a normal occlusion occurs in the future. Now, this is one question which I would want you guys to answer. Which of the following will lead to class 2 malocclusion? Exactly. This is a distal step, and this is going to go in class 2. See, this is so easy. I'm so glad. Now, I'm going to talk about mixed dentition period. What is a mixed dentition period? Mixed matlab mix of primary and secondary. Primary and permanent, sorry, not secondary. So mixed dentition period is the period when both primary and permanent teeth are present. So this starts from the eruption of first permanent tooth to last deciduous tooth. Okay, easy. So it is divided into 3 stages. First transition, intertransition, and second transition. Okay, so what happens in first transition? I'll try to show it to you with the help of, yeah. So what happens in first transition? Yeah. So what happens in first transition? This patient has just completed the first transition. What happens is permanent molars come in to the oral cavity, and your 4 incisors are like this is in the state. Abhi ye incisor aaya nahi hai. This is the state. The 4 incisors are replaced. So first permanent molars and 4 incisors come in the first transition period. Okay. Intertransition phase essentially is like not much change in the intertransition, and in the second transition, all these 3 teeth come. So there are 3 phases: first transition, second transition, and intertransition. Now there is one very doubtful question which is not given in any standard book, so you don't need to kill yourself finding the answer of that. Is ugly duckling stage. After much reading, I feel ugly duckling stage comes in the intertransition. Now, when we go about this, I'll explain it to you why. So you understand first transition made the first permanent molars, first permanent molars and incisors are replaced. In intertransition, nothing much happens. In second transition, canines and premolars are replaced. Okay. Now we are going to see what is incisor liability. So this term was given by Warren Mimine. What is incisor liability? It is the difference in the width of the permanent and primary incisors. Okay, do you see primary incisors are small, and permanent incisors are so big. Like the most important complaint, most common complaint the patients are going to come to is, जब ये छोटा था इसके दांत बहुत अच्छे थे, एकदम मोतियों जैसे दांत, ये बड़ा हुआ है, इतने गंदे बड़े-बड़े दांत. Now why is that so? Because there is an incisal liability. The difference is because of the width. Now these teeth are according to the adult size. Now adult size is going to be much bigger than the size of the child. So what is the magnitude of incisal liability? For maxillary arch, it is around 7 mm. In certain books, it is also given to be around 7.6 mm. What is incisal liability in the mandibular arch? In the mandibular arch, it is 5 mm. In certain books, it is also given 6 mm. So you remember 5 to 6 mm in the mandibular arch and 7 to 7.6 mm in the maxillary arch. Now, if there is a difference in the width, and you have to give a permanent addition, how this incisor liability is compensated? Now, this is a bigger question because we have to compensate. We have to bring these adult teeth in the patient's in the child's mouth. So there are compensating mechanisms. There are primarily 3 compensating mechanisms. Okay. So the first is increase in the intercanine width. there is an increase in the intercanine width when the permanent teeth are replaced. Okay, so there is increase in the intercanine width, so that there is more space for the incisors to come. The second is there is a labial eruption of the incisors. The incisors erupt labially, so there is a wider arch. So that there is a wider, a smaller arch. So there is a slight labial eruption of the incisors. The third compensating mechanism is the interdental spaces. So these are the physiological spaces that we heard in the starting. So these interdental spaces are the third compensating mechanism. Okay, so you need to remember how the incisor liability is compensated. First, there is an increase in the intercanine width. There is a labial eruption of the incisors, and there is an these are the three mechanisms by which
permanent
the incisor liability is.
AVT is not erupt, lingually erupt.
Yeah, I can hear you, but I'm not able to understand your question. Could you just write it in the chat box? It will be very easy for me to make out what you're going to ask. Everything's clear in incisor liability. Can I move on? Any doubt till now? Okay, sure. Next is what is leeway space. Now, leeway spaces ideally should be calculated on an IOPA, but I've just put a radiograph so that I'm able to explain it to you. So, leeway space is the combined dimension of the primary canine, first molar and second molar, and the permanent canine, first premolar and second premolar. So, what it is the combined width of the primary teeth is more than the combined width. Primary teeth matlab primary canine, first molar and second molar. In तीनों की combined width is more than the combined width of the permanent canine, first premolar and second premolar. Okay, this is what is leeway space. So here in the diagram you can see this is primary canine, this is permanent, this is primary first molar, this is primary second molar. So the combined width of this is a bit more than the permanent. As you can see it here, in maxillary arch it is somewhat less, right? In the maxillary arch it is 0.9 mm in each arch. So it is a total of 1.8 mm. In the mandibular arch, it is 1.7 mm each side, which will be equal to 3.4 mm. Somebody's audio is there on. Please switch on, turn off your audio. So leeway space is a bit more in the mandibular arch. So you understand this? There is a difference in the dimensions of the primary teeth and the permanent teeth. The dimension of the primary teeth is a bit more. In the mandibular arch is 3.4 mm and in the maxillary arch it is 1.8 mm. Okay. The next phenomenon that we are going to see is the eruption of canines. What is the eruption of canines? Okay. Now first let's discuss what happens and then which stage it comes in. What happens is when the canines erupt, so these canine roots, canine erupting tooth, it pushes the roots of the lateral incisor, which in turn pushes the root of the central incisor. So what happens is there comes a space, which is usually around 2 mm. Okay. Now there occurs a midline diastema. So ugly duckling stage is midline diastema. There is a midline diastema. There is a midline diastema. Okay, you can see that. And there is some thoda sa tede bhi ho jata hai. So there is an inclination of both the incisors and there is a midline diastema. Now when the canine is erupting, during the eruption of canine this happens. Okay, once the canine is erupted, once it is in place, So the midline diastema disappears. It again straightens out, and the roots, because the pressure is relieved, so the roots straighten out. Can you see? During eruption, these teeth move in a distal direction. These crown move in a distal direction. Roots move in a mesial direction. But after the eruption of canine, after the canine is erupted, this space goes off. Now the question comes is, in which stage it occurs? Which stage it occurs? So it occurs during the eruption of canine, right? Now during eruption of the canine is most importantly intertransition phase. Once the canine is erupted, what is it called? It is the second transition stage, right? So it is not in the second transition because till then the canine has already erupted. So it is not in the second transition, but it occurs in the intertransition phase. What is the age when it occurs? So the age is around 8 to 9 years. It occurs during 8 to 9 years. The third thing that you need to remember is another name for this is ugly duckling stage or Broadbent's phenomenon. Broadbent's phenomena or ugly duckling stage. Okay, this is also called physiological midline diastema. Physiological matlab which just normally occurs in a child. So if a child of 8 to 9 years come to you for treatment of midline diastema, what would you tell them? You would tell them that this is a normal occurring and you don't need to be treated for this. But you would always look for, so I have a presentation or I have a video on that P-Wired channel on YouTube related to the closure of midline diastema. If the midline diastema, if you are seeing a midline diastema of more than 4 mm during 8 to 9 years of age, so you need to check for supernumerary teeth. There might be a supernumerary teeth between these incisors, which is causing increased diastema. So when the diastema is more than 4 mm, you need to check for any abnormality. In fact, I had few cases in which there was a mesiodense, and we had to treat the mesiodense, and then you need to close the space a bit, not completely, but you can close the space a bit. That is not going to be acid exam, but you just need to remember that if it is more than 4 mm, you need to check for any abnormality. Okay. Next phenomena that we're going to see is safety wall mechanism. What is safety wall mechanism? Safety wall mechanism is when the mandibular growth occurs. I'll explain. I'll repeat the Broadbent phenomenon. When the mandible growth occurs at the year around 12 years of age, what happens? There is a change in intercanine width of maxilla. Now, why it happens is maxilla lies above the mandible. Mandible is encompassed in the maxilla. So what happens is when the mandible grows around 12 years of age, the maxillary canines occur as safety wall mechanism. Okay, so it is the maxillary canines which occur, which play a role of a safety wall for the growth of mandible. So this occurs around 12 years of age. Okay. Okay. Somebody has asked me to repeat the Broadbent phenomena. What is Broadbent phenomena? Broadbent phenomena is something which occurs during the eruption of canines. What happens is the forming canine pushes the root of lateral incisor, which in turn pushes the root of central incisor, because of which the crowns tip distally. Okay, and this occurs during the eruption. Once the canine is erupted, all the force is gone and they turn back into the normal direction. This phenomena is called Broadbent phenomena. This is also called ugly duckling stage. Okay. Now please repeat. Safety wall. Safety wall mechanism is when there is a change in the intercanine width of maxilla to help to guide the growth of the mandible. So you see mandible is contained within the maxilla, right? But maxilla completes its growth at what age? By 8 to 10 years, the growth of maxilla is complete. But the growth of mandible is complete by what age? It is usually 11 to 13 in girls and 12 to 15 in boys. So you see that mandible ki growth is still remaining even when the maxillary growth is complete. So how is it compensated? How do we guide the mandible? So what happens is that there is some change in the intercanine width of the maxilla at the age around 11 to 12 years when the mandible is growing. So the maxillary canines act as a safety wall for the growth of the mandible. Okay, Dr. Renuka has asked how intercanine width prevent excessive growth of mandible. So it is not preventing the excessive growth of mandible. It is just guiding the growth of mandible. You cannot actually prevent growth. It does not happen. Okay. Ma'am, what if safety wall mechanism fails? If safety wall mechanism fails, then the mandible will grow more and it will turn into class 3. Okay. But every case does not turn into class 3. So what happens is the maxillary intercanine width, it tries to control the growth of the mandible. Okay. Just give it some time, sleep with this thought, and you will be able to understand. Okay, so there is a question. There is a question asked in exam. Safety wall mechanism. I would like you guys to attempt this question. Try to attempt this question. Yeah, increase in the maxillary intercanine width at 12 years of age to control the growth of the, to help in the growth of the mandible. Okay. Now I'm going to discuss about terminal plane. Two molar relationship. Now you have all understood what happens. We have discussed terminal planes, right? So we have three types of spacings. Okay. So there is one type of spacing is interdental spacing, right? Generalized spacing. So how is generalized spacing used? It is used to compensate the incisal liability that we have seen right now. Compensate incisal liability. What is the another kind of space that we have seen? It is the primate spaces or anthropoid spaces or simian spaces. What happens is primate spaces help in the early transition. It is also called early shift. I'll come again. What is early shift? And the third is the leeway space. What leeway space helps in is late shift. Now, what is early shift and late shift? Let's discuss what is early shift and late shift. Now, we have discussed three kinds of relationships, right? So first was a mesal step relationship. Let's take a distal step relationship first. First is a distal step relationship. Now you can hop on the distal side. So this is a distal step relationship. So early shift is when there is a utilization of the primate spaces, right? The primate spaces का utilization तो होगा तो क्या होगा? Slight of the molar will come forward. Slight of the molar will come forward, and slight of the mandible. Slight of the. So essentially, the relationship remains same. Utilization of primate spaces. So first is this is early shift. Early shift होगा तो क्या होगा? The molar relationship is going to be the same. Okay. Now there is a utilization of leeway spaces. What we saw in leeway spaces is more in mandible, right? So what happens is molar comes forward. So the maxilla is going to remain same and the molar is going to come here. Okay, so what it has come on, this has become end-on relationship. So you understand? You understand this end-on relationship? Everybody understands this end-on relationship. Now let's discuss what happens in a flush terminal configuration. Now, if there is a flush terminal vein, utilization of, okay, actually what happens is, there are three factors in change from terminal relationship to the terminal plane relationship and the Bobby's classification, and molar relationship is Angle's relationship. Okay, I'll explain it from the very start. So we have three steps. First is distal step. Second is flush terminal plane. And the third is mesial step. Okay, how does distal step look? Distal step is like this. Flush terminal is like this. And mesial step is like this. Okay. Now there are two types of spaces: early shift and late shift, primate spaces and leeway spaces. So after the utilization of primate and leeway spaces, distal step relationship goes into same class 2. You have seen that, right? Now distal space relationship goes into class 2 after the utilization of all these spaces. Now let's see what happens to the flush terminal plane. After the utilization of all these spaces, the flush terminal plane goes to end on. What happens to the mesial space? Mesial step goes into the class 1. There is one other thing. What happens is the mandible is growing, right? If mandible grows, agar mandible grows, the mandible is going to come forward. So this is going to end in end-on relationship. What will happen if mandible grows in flush terminal plane? In flush terminal plane, if the mandible grows, mandible is going to come forward. It will end into the class 1. Okay. What happens if the mandible grows in mesial step relationship? If the mandible grows in mesial step relationship, it is going to turn class 3. Okay, so mesial step relationship leads to class 3 only when mandible grows. There is excessive growth of the mandible. If there is no excessive growth of the mandible, then it may turn into class 1. Okay, when you come in reality, what happens is there is an interplay of a lot of things. It is not as easy as it seems. There is an interplay of a lot of things. Apart from the mandible growth in primate spaces and leeway spaces, there is also tooth movement. If tooth movement occurs, then we are going to land up between class 2 and flush terminal in distal step, between end-on and class 1 in flush terminal, and between class 1 and class 3 in mesial step. Okay, you want me to repeat? So I'm going to discuss whatever we discussed on the previous slide. The same thing is here.
Sorry.
If we have a distal step relationship after the utilization of after the early shift and late shift, the molars are going to land into class 2 mandible. If there is mandibular growth, now if you see forward growth of the mandible, if there is forward growth of the mandible is going to go forward and it is going to end into end-on. Okay. Now, if we start with flush terminal plane in deciduous dentition, it will go into end-to-end after the utilization of early and late shift. If there is growth of mandible, it will go into class 1. Again, if we have a mesial step relationship in the deciduous dentition, it is going to be class 1 if by the utilization of early and late spaces. Dr. Deepika, it is someone from your batch who's not. Okay. If we have a measles step relationship and if the mandible grows, then it will go into the class. This diagram is given in Profit. If you don't have Profit, just screenshot, take a screenshot of it or something. I'll just erase the ink. And just think about this and you will be able to understand. Okay, I'll just go into the settings. Okay, thanks, Dr. Sakshi. Okay, do you want me to revise it again, or you will be able to understand? Okay. So there are three types of spaces. We have three types of spaces. First is generalized spacing. Generalized spacing, which is used for compensating incisor liability. Okay. Then there is primate space. Semiate space is anthropoid space, which is used for early shift. Then there is leeway space, which is used for late shift. Okay, so these are the three spaces which are utilized in compensating incisor liability, early shift and late shift. Now, if we are starting with a distal step relationship in deciduous dentition, with the use of early shift and late shift, the teeth are going to come in class 2. Same, जैसे ये है वैसे ही class 2 जाएगा. If there is a growth of mandible, forward growth of mandible, so this is going to come a bit forward and it is going to end up into end-on relationship. Okay. Now, if we start with flush terminal plane relationship with the utilization of primate spaces and leeway spaces, we will end into end-to-end relationship in permanent dentition. If there is mandibular growth, then it is going to come in class 1. Okay. Again, if we have a meso step relationship in deciduous dentition with the use of early and late shift, it will come into class 1. But if there is mandibular growth, it will go into the class 3 malformation. So there is a lot of factor dependent upon the forward growth of mandible. There is a lot of factor dependent upon the shift of the teeth, caries of the teeth, habits of the patient. So there are a lot of factors. This table is just to simplify what can happen. So if you see, a distal step relationship does not usually end into class 1, but sometimes it does in actual practice. But distal step relationship usually does not end into class 1. Okay. Next, we're going to discuss a few self-correcting anomalies. So you need to remember self-correcting anomalies for all the types of dentition. First is predentate. Predentate matlab when there is no teeth. So first thing that we saw was open bite, right? There was an anterior open bite. There is anterior open bite. How is anterior open bite going to get corrected? It will get corrected by the eruption of teeth, eruption of primary incisors. The second self-correcting anomaly in predentate is complete overlap of maxilla. Okay, so maxilla, the mandible is small basically. It is retrognathic mandible. Now, how is retrognathic mandible going to get corrected? It is going to get corrected by the growth of mandible. Okay, and the third is complete overlap of maxilla. It is going to get corrected by transverse and sagittal growth of mandible. Transverse and sagittal growth of mandible. I think there is a table. You just need to see that table. The next self-correcting anomaly that we going to see is the primary dentition. So primary dentition mein what are the self-correcting anomalies? First is deep bite. So you know there is deep bite. I showed you. There was one case. So it corrects by primary molar eruption and also there is adhesion of incisor edges that we saw in the diagram. Adhesion of incisor edges. The second is flush terminal plane. Now, flush terminal plane, you know, the terminal plane can be anything, and it gets corrected by early mesial shift. The third is spacing. Spacing का क्या होता है? Spacing is being utilized by compensating incisal liability or shift or mesial shift. So it is going to get corrected by eruption of permanent teeth. Next, we are going to see the mixed dentition. What happens in mixed dentition? The first primary is deep bite. Deep bite is going to get corrected by the eruption of molars. Okay. The second thing is ugly duckling stage. Ugly duckling stage gets corrected by eruption of canines that we discussed. And the third is end on molar. End on molar is going to get corrected by late shift. Okay. So these are the three self-correcting anomalies that we need to remember. Now let's see how much you can remember out of all the things that I've tried to teach you. I would like you to answer the chat box. Anyone? Yeah. So you understand this concept. If the flush terminal plane is present in the restary dentition, okay, very good. So I think that I'm like trying to be able to understand. If it is a distal step, it will come into class 2, and if it is a mesial step relationship, then it is going to come originally in class 3. So you understand this. I'm so happy. So which of the following can be predicted from a flush terminal plane in the primary dentition? Kya predict kar sakte ho? What can be predicted? I want to answer. Yeah, you cannot predict it because there are a lot of factors. What are the factors? First factor is the spacing, how much spacing is present. Okay. Next factor is the shift of teeth. Then the factor is the growth of mandibles. So there are a lot of factors and you cannot really predict what will happen. Next. Ugly duckling stage of transition dentition are characterized by all except. So we might not have discussed a few things from this, but let's see what we know. Disto-angular axial inclination of maxillary incisors. Yes, because the incisors are like this. They go on a distalized inclination, disto-angular inclination. So this seems to be correct. We don't know about this much. We don't know about this. Let's see the third option. Mandibular lateral incisors erupting lingual to the mandibular central incisors. This does not happen. What happens is they just tip distally. So this is the all except it. This is the right answer. Intercanine width of maxilla is increased with the eruption of. It's kind of a very simple question. Exactly. Intercanine width is going to be increased by the eruption of permanent canines. In a 9-year-old child came to a dental clinic with a spacing in the anterior teeth. What are you going to tell the parents? That this is a normal physiological phenomena, this is a Broadbent phenomena, this is ugly duckling stage, and it's going to get corrected. What if the spacing is more than 4 mm? What will you do? What will you do? No. You will just check. You will either take a you'll just check for abnormality. You may find the supernumerary teeth. You just check for it. Okay, you just don't go and telling the patient that there is a mesonex. You just check. For that, it's better to take OPG. You can also take IOPA and check, but OPG is a better tool. Okay, supervision of child's dentition is most critical in which age? Exactly, because this is a mixed dentition stage. A lot of teeth are going take changes in place. So you need to assess the nutrition. Now we're going to take 5 minutes break, and we're going to come back and we're going to read malocclusion. Okay, occlusion is done. Now we're going to read malocclusion. Do you have any doubts? I can take up a few doubts here and then we continue. Do you have any doubts? Do you want revision of anything? Yes, I have. Dr. Deepika is having doubts. Yes, what is it, Dr. Deepika?